Welcome student to my third lecture on UV visible spectroscopy part 3 instrumentation. So here we are going to study the instrumentation of UV visible spectroscopy. The learning outcome of this lecture that learners will be able to list the different component of a spectrophotometer, explain principle and working of monochromator, differentiate between single beam and double beam instrument, apply the principle of spectrophotometric titration, single component and multi-component analysis. Review of our previous lecture. What you have learned in the previous lecture, we have studied the Beer's-Lambert's law and its derivation. So Beer's law states that first we have studied Lambert's law. Lambert's law states that intensity of transmitted beam decreases exponentially with increase in thickness of the absorbing medium, that is for solid. And we have studied for the Beer's law, it is intensity of transmitted beam decreases exponentially with increase in concentration of absorbing species, that is for the solution. So we have studied this Beer's-Lambert's law, then we have derived their equations. We come to a conclusive equation that A equals to epsilon BC or A equals to ABC. Then various forms of these equations we have studied which can be used for quantitative estimation. So deviations of Beer's and Lambert's law we have studied. Lambert's law, no deviation. For Beer's law, three types of deviations we have studied. First is your true deviation, that is called as a concentration deviation. Second is your instrumental deviation, and third one is your chemical deviations. Deviation means maintaining the linearity. Then we have studied the significance of Beer's-Lambert's law, that how Beer's-Lambert's law can be modified to get the concentration. Mathematically, we can have the concentration by using this Beer's-Lambert's law by using the above equations. Then we have performed the determination of concentration of unknown using this law. Various problems we have solved by using this Beer's-Lambert's law, where we are having certain values like A11 values. Then either we are having the molar absorptivity values, and from that we have calculated the concentration. Then we have studied the applications of UV visible spectroscopy, qualitative estimation, quantitative estimation, structural elucidation. All this part we have learned in the previous videos. Now in this video, we'll start with instrumentation. So when we are thinking of an instrument, there are the basic 5 components which are there in the instrument. First one is your source, a stable source of radiant energy at the desired wavelength or at the wavelength range. Then second is your sample holder, a transparent container used to hold the sample, or that is called as a cuvette or cell, etc. Then third component is your wavelength selector, a device that isolates a restricted region of electromagnetic spectrum used for measurement. Okay, so we know as per the Beer's-Lambert's law that you have to work into the narrow bandwidth of the radiations, and that we can obtain by using this wavelength selector. The fourth component is a photoelectric transducer, or that is also known as a detector, which converts the radiant energy into the usable signal that is can be understood. Then the fifth component, that is a signal processor and a readout unit, that is the amplifier, attenuators, transducer, signal processors, such which will convert the signal into some readable form. Therefore, they are known as readout units. So these 5 basic components can be written in the block diagram in this way: source, wavelength selector, sample holder, detector, and a readout unit. So when we are thinking of the instruments, we have to talk about 2 instruments, single beam instruments and double beam instrument in next part of this videos. Now, first we'll start with the one by one. First component is your radiation source. So these are the ideal requirements of radiation source. It should be stable and should not allow the fluctuation. So during the process, it should not produce any fluctuation in the radiation. It should emit light of continuous spectrum of high and uniform intensity over the entire wavelength range where it is to be used. Means if you want to use in the UV range, it should produce 200 to 400 radiations within the range. So it should provide incident light of sufficient intensity for transmitted energy to be detected at the end of the optic path. So we are not able to measure the absorbance. What we can measure is the intensity of the bombarded beam and intensity of the transmitted beam. So here We can just measure the intensities. So we should it provide the incident light of the sufficient intensity. It should not show fatigue on continuous use. Fatigue means when heating occurs, it might be the intensity of the radiation changes. So this should not happen. That is called as a fatigue. So radiation source should be stable. Type of sources, when we are thinking of the type of sources, there are two types of sources: line sources and continuous sources. Line sources emits number of bands of radiation with limited range of wavelength, widely used in atomic absorption spectroscopy and in molecular fluorescence spectroscopy. So these are the line sources. They are giving the discrete lines of the radiations. Example are the mercury arc lamp and sodium vapor lamp. You have seen these two lamps on the road, mercury lamps giving the white light and sodium lamp giving the yellow light, which is at 589.3 nanometer. So they are giving a fixed wavelength of radiation. So they cannot be used in the continuous scanning process. They can be used only for the single wavelength where we require the single wavelength, like in the atomic absorption spectroscopy or in the fluorescence spectroscopy. Then second one is your continuous source, which emits the radiation that changes in intensity slowly as a function of wavelength. Means we can get the whole range of radiation from the source. Widely used in absorption and fluorescence spectroscopy for UV region. For visible region, the radiation source is tungsten filament lamp, and for UV region, the halogen discharge lamp and D2 lamps are commonly used, emitting the polychromatic light within the range. So first we'll see the tungsten filament lamp or tungsten halogen lamp. It consists it construction is similar to house lamp, whatever lamp we are using in the houses. The bulb contain a filament of tungsten fixed in an evacuated condition and then filled with the inert gas. So we are using the halogenated gases for this purpose many times. Therefore, they are also called as a halogen lamp. The filament can heated up to 3000 K. Beyond this, tungsten starts sublimating. So we have to go up to the 3000 K. It is used when polychromatic light is required in the visible region. To prevent this, along with the inert gas, some amount of the halogen is introduced. Usually, we are using iodine as a halogen. So it has certain demerits that emits the major portion of its radiation energy in near IR region of the spectrum. It is used in visible, but it also emits some near IR. So this is a hydrogen discharge lamp. You see the construction of this hydrogen discharge lamp. It is a pair of electrode is enclosed in a glass tube. So this is the glass tube where this pair of electrodes are enclosed, provided with silica or quartz window for UV radiation. So this is called as a window. Okay, so it emits the UV radiations or visible UV radiations that can be emitted. So they are generally of the silica or quartz type. When current is passed through this electrode, maintained at high voltages, discharge of electron occurs, which excites the hydrogen molecule, which in turn causes emission of ultraviolet radiation in near UV region, that is 200 to 400 nanometer. They are stable and robust. So this was used in the previous instruments. Now it has been replaced by D2 lamp that we are called it as a deuterium lamp. So they are more stable than the hydrogen lamp. So deuterium lamp, that is called as a gas discharge lamp, which emit strongly in the UV region that is below 370 nanometer. The deuterium lamp emit radiation extending from 112 nanometer to 900 nanometer. But continuous spectrum is only obtained from 180 to 370 nanometer. Therefore, it is used in the UV range. Eye protection is suggested when using a deuterium lamp. So because they are very harmful to your eyes, so whenever you are using, don't directly look into the UV lamp because it will hurt your eyes. One more lamp that can be used is a xenon discharge lamp. This xenon discharge lamp is only the lamp which can provide you UV and visible radiations. In all, it can be used. It possesses two tungsten electrodes separated by some distance. These are enclosed in a glass tube with a quartz or fused silica, and xenon gas is filled under the pressure. An intense arc is formed between the electrode. Arc means that is a spark formed between the electrode by applying the high voltages. So when we apply the high voltages, a spark will be produced, giving you the radiations within this range. This is a good source of continuous plus additional intense radiation. Its intensity is higher than the hydrogen discharge lamp. It emits the radiation between 190 nanometer to 1000 nanometer, means from UV visible, both regions are included, including some part of the near IR region. But it has certain demerits. The lamp, since operates at high voltages, becomes very hot during operation and needs the thermal insulation. They are not used commonly, but the two lamps, that is tungsten filament lamp and D2 lamps, are commonly used. One more lamp is there in many cases, that is mercury arc lamp. In mercury arc lamp, mercury vapor is stored under high pressure and excitation of mercury atom is done by electric discharge. It is widely used in atomic absorption spectroscopy and in molecular fluorescence spectroscopy. So whatever filter fluorometers you have in the laboratory, they are using mercury arc lamp as the source. It has a demerit, not suitable for continuous spectral studies because it does not give the continuous radiation. So it is giving the discrete line, so use as a line source. Okay, so this is all about your source. The second component is your wavelength selector. For most spectroscopic analysis, radiation consisting of limited, narrow, continuous group of wavelength are called as a band. As we have studied in the instrumental deviation, we have to work into the narrow bandwidth to avoid the deviations to Beer-Lambert law. And to select this narrow bandwidth, we should have certain wavelength selector. A narrow band path is required for obtaining a linear relationship between the OD and concentration. OD is an alternative term for absorbance. Old days they are using OD as another term. So don't confuse when you say OD. OD and absorbance are same. Two type of wavelength selectors are available. Either we can have the filters or we can have the monochromatics. So when we are talking about the filters, filters are again of two types. One is called as a absorption filter and another is called as a interference filter. Their names itself gives their principle that they absorb the unwanted radiation and allow the desired radiation to pass on to the other side. Whereas the interference filter also produce the interference in path of radiation which is not required and only allowing desired radiation to pass on to the other side. Absorption filters are used for visible region and interference filters are used for UV visible and IR region. Interference filter works on principle of optical interference. So first we'll see the absorption filter. Absorption filter works by selective absorption of unwanted radiation and transmit the radiation which is required. Okay, example is a glass and gelatin filter. You may have seen that if your classroom is having the green color glass, the inside light will be green color. Means it has absorbed the other radiations and allowing only the desired light to pass on to the one side. So these are called as a absorption filter. Absorption glass filter is made up of the solid sheet of glass that has been colored by pigment. Pigment is imbibed in this glass, which is dissolved or dispersed in the glass. The color in the glass filters are produced by incorporating certain metal oxides like this. Okay, copper, cobalt, nickel, iron, manganese, chromium, vanadium, etc. So these are the coloring pigments which are imbibed into the glass filters. Gelatin filter is an example of absorption filter prepared by adding organic pigments. Here, instead of solid glass sheet, a gelatin sheet is used. You may have seen these gelatin filters when you are focusing different colors. So for the color focusing, we are using these gelatin filters. But initially they were used, now they are not used in the instrument because of certain limitations. So merit and demerits of filters. Merit of the filter, all absorption and interference, they are simple in construction. Absorption filters we are talking about. They are simple in construction, cheaper, selection of filter is also easy. But for the absorption filter, there are certain demerits. It is less accurate. Okay, its band pass, or that is called as a bandwidth, is more than 30 nanometer, 20 to 30 nanometer. Means we can select the one filter which has plus minus 30 nanometer range. Okay, so if you want 400 nanometer wavelength, then the filter will give you 370 to 430 nanometer. Means we are not able to select a particular band or particular wavelength by using this absorption filter. Hence, less accurate results are obtained if you are using the absorption filter. So this again can be overcome by using the interference filter. So again, they works on the interference phenomena, causes rejection of unwanted wavelength by selective reflection. It is constructed by using two parallel glass plates which are slaved or sandwiched internally and sprayed by thin film of dielectric material such as calcium fluoride, silicon oxide, or magnesium fluoride with a refractive index. Certain refractive index is there. So this thickness of these two electro thin film will decide, dielectric material thin film will decide which light is to be passed on to the other side. So this dielectric material thickness is important. This filter has a band pass or bandwidth of 10 to 15 nanometer. We can work within the range of 10 nanometer with peak transmittance of 40 to 60%. Its merits, they provide greater transmittance and narrow band pass or narrow bandwidth as compared to your absorption filter. They are inexpensive. Additional filters can be used to cut off the unwanted wavelength. So these are the interference filters. So you have seen in the filters that either if you are using absorption filter, we can change the wavelength by 30 nanometer. Whereas if you are using the interference filter, we can change the wavelength by 10 nanometer. If you want to go for the scanning that is changing the wavelength within the region. Means if you want to scan your substance in UV region, you have to go from 200 nanometer to 400 nanometer. And if you are using filter, for every 30 nanometer, you have to use the different filter. If you are using interference filter, for every 10 nanometer, you have to use the different filter. So it will be a tedious job to scan the substance by using the filters. So again, there is a discovery to have a continuous process of changing wavelength that can be obtained by using the monochromators. Monochromators are the devices comprising of the five basic components. It has the five basic component as you see in the figure. See this figure where you will see the five basic component. First one is your entrance slit with the rectangular aperture. The second one is your collimating lens or collimating mirror. Okay, so they collimates the light. What you mean by collimation? They collimates or they make the light perpendicular, parallel. Okay, they make the light parallel, not perpendicular. They make the light parallel. The beams will be passing in parallel fashion. Then this light falls onto the dispersing devices. You may observe in this diagram there are two types of dispersing devices are shown. One is called as a prism and another one is a gratings. Okay, so they are the dispersing devices which disperse out the light into its component wavelength. Then next component is a focusing lens or focusing mirror. It has the ability to focus the radiation to the focal plane. Okay, the focal plane, that is the distance where this radiation get concentrated. Okay, this is called as a focal length. So this is called as a focal plane. At the focal plane, a exit slit is situated with similar rectangular aperture. So the light will come out through this exit slit when the radiation are focused by this focusing lens. So this is the device with such five components. It is a monochromator, means single color. Mono means single, chromator is a color. Is used to select the wavelength. So it has the ability to select wavelength less than 1 nanometer. Okay, so If you are using prism, that we can select the wavelength from 1, 2, 3 in that way. If you are using refracting gratings, even we can go up to zero point 0.1 nanometer. Means very precise wavelength you can get by using this monochromator. So all new instrument uses the monochromator as a device. It is the actual fact it is partially possible to obtain one wavelength rather than narrow range of wavelength by using such devices. How these devices work, just I will explain the function of this device. See here, when the radiations are bombarded into the entrance slit, they will come inside the device. Okay, this collimating lens make them parallel. Here also, this collimating mirror make them parallel. Then they falls onto this diffracting devices where the diffraction of radiation take place. For your sake of understanding, I have taken the diffraction into two wavelength only, lambda 1 and lambda 2 wavelength. See this lambda 1 and lambda 2 wavelength, lambda 1 and lambda 2 wavelength. Now when this radiation passes to the focusing lens or focusing mirror, it will get focused to the exit slit. Now at first instance, you see that this lambda 2 is coming out from this exit slit. Here also lambda 2 is coming out from this exit slit. Now what you can do, just rotate this prism in such a way that this lambda 2 will be internally reflected and lambda 1 will come out. Here also lambda 1 will come out and lambda 2 will be internally reflected. Means just by rotating this dispersing devices, you may get the different wavelength. Okay, so precisely we can rotate this by using some stripper motors and by using some vernier calipers. So exact angle we can decide how much this dispersing devices can be rotated. So this will give you the exact wavelength. There are two main choices of the monochromators. Either we are having the prism monochromator, where we are having the grating monochromators. So I think all of you understood basic principle of this monochromators. Now we'll see the dispersing devices. The first dispersing devices is called as a prism. Okay, so we are using, when the prisms are used in the monochromator, they are called as a prism monochromator. So now when the prism is made from the glass, quartz or fused silica, depending upon type of radiations, we can select the prism. In case of UV light, you have to use the quartz or fused silica. For the visible light, you can go for the glass prisms. Such type of the prisms are also used in IR spectroscopy. But glass and quartz are not transparent to IR radiation. So there are the specially designed prisms of the alkali earth halides are used. Okay, sodium chloride, sodium bromide, such type of the material are compressed to form the prism, and that prism is used to disperse the IR radiation. Okay, so same principle is same. There is a dispersion of radiation when they passes through the prism. Quartz or fused silica is the choice of material in UV spectrum. When light is passed through the glass prism, dispersion of polychromatic light is in the rainbow colors. Okay, so you can see these rainbow colors are there. That is called as a VIBO: violet, indigo, blue, green, orange, yellow, orange, red. Okay, so these are the different colors. They get dispersed out through this prism. Okay, so we can use this prism as a dispersing device. Now by rotating of this dispersing prism, different wavelengths of the spectrums can be made possible. Okay, effective wavelength depends upon dispersing power of these prisms. Okay, so there are two types of the prisms we are generally utilizing. One is called as a Cornu prism and another is called as a Littrow type prisms. What are the Cornu prisms and Littrow prisms? There are two types of mounting in an instrument. One is called as a Cornu type, that is refractive. See, this Cornu is a refractive prism, whereas Littrow is a reflective prisms. What is difference between the refractive and the reflective? Reflective on the same surfaces and refractive when they passes through the medium. Okay, change in the path of the light, that is refraction. So Cornu prism are refractive prism, which has an optical angle of 60 degree, and it is adjusted such that on rotation the emerging light is allowed to fall on exit slit. Okay, so they are refraction of the radiation take place in the case of cornu prism. They are 60-degree prisms. Now, in case of the litro prism, the other type is called as the litro type, that is reflective prism. Reflection is taking place, which has optical angle of 30 degree, and its one surface is aluminized. Mirror-like surface is provided on the back of this prism, which reflect a light back to pass through the prism and to emerges on the same side of the light source. Okay, so that light does not pass through the prism, they get reflected. Okay, so this is called as a litro prism, that is a 30-degree prism. So these are the prism monochromaton. The second one is your grating monochromaton. So what do you mean by grating? I think most of you may have this term grating, but many times you use such gratings in your operations. Have you seen any grating in your life? No? Remember well. I think all of you may have seen the CD, compact disc, which is used to record the songs and movies. Now it is also not used today. We have pen drives and other devices. But if you have seen the CD, I think most of you have seen. And if you rotate the CD, you observe a color band on surface of CD. Why that color band is produced? How? That is the dispersion, nothing but the dispersion. And how the CD disperses out the radiation. The basic principle is like a grating. On the CD, one part, there is a plastic diskette. On this plastic diskette, a mirror face is produced by sticking some polymer. So that is a polished surface on which small grooves are prepared. So when we are writing this CD, you may have observed that there is a formation of grooves by using this laser beam. And these grooves are used to record all the information. But these grooves can also produce the angular diffraction, and that causes the dispersion of the radiation. Okay, so if you are using gratings, they can give you plus minus zero point 0.1 nanometer bandwidth. So they are very sensitive, they can be used. There are two types of the gratings devices. One is called as a diffracting grating and another one is called as a transmission grating. Transmission where the radiation passes through the grating and then get dispersed, and one is your diffraction grating where the angular surface reflection is there causing the dispersion of radiation. See here, the basic principle is given here. This is called as an angular dispersion. The basic principle of dispersion in case of the grating monochromata is angular dispersion. More refined dispersion of light is obtained by means of diffraction grating. This consists of large number of parallel lines, that is called as a grooves, about 15,000 to 30,000 per inch, is ruled on highly polished surface of aluminium. Initially, a polished aluminium sheet is used on which the grooves, parallel grooves are prepared with certain devices like diamond-like tools that is used to produce such grooves. So this is a tedious job to produce a parallel grooves and which are very nearer to each other. So it's skilled and technical job it is. So these gratings are replica made from master grating. Okay, generally they are called as a master grating because they are coated with the epoxy resins. Why they are called as a master grating? Because these surfaces of aluminum may get oxidized when they are exposed to the atmosphere, and that causes the blackening on the surface of these devices, and that can be prevented by coating these surfaces with certain epoxy resin, and therefore they are called as a master gratings. Either we can use the aluminium or we can use the gold for this purpose. Gold is also polished surface where we can prepare the parallel grooves. Now this statement is very important. UV and visible radiation contain 300 to 2000 grooves per mm. Okay, the number of grooves are more in cases of UV visible radiation, whereas in case of IR radiation, there are only 10 to 200 grooves per centimeter per mm of the medium. So these are the two types of the different types of this gratings monochromator. Advantages of grating monochromator: grating gives higher and linear dispersion compared to prism monochromator, can be used over a wide wavelength range. Gratings can be constructed to resistance to atmospheric moisture. Okay, we can coat with the epoxy resin and we can prevent them from the atmospheric moisture. Provide light of narrow wavelength. Okay, so gratings are most commonly used in the IR radiation because this prism, if it is made from the alkali earth material like sodium chloride, cesium bromide, or certain bromiding salts, they may has tendency to absorb the moisture, and fogging effect will be there, whitening of this prism. Okay, so they may produce the problem. So instead of prisms, they uses the grating for the IR reason. There is no loss of energy due to the absorption. As they are diffraction grating, there is no loss of the energy. So again, we will see certain types of gratings. Many types of grating instruments are there. These are the grating instruments I am going to say. Just name is funny. Zerny tuner. If you see C also, but it is silent, that is known as a Zerny tuner instruments. So this Zerny tuner instrument, same what we are studied in the principle, that there is entrance slit, then dispersing, or first is your collimating lens or collimating mirror, then dispersing gratings, then focusing lens, focusing mirror, and exit slit. So this type of the instrument was known as a Zerny tuner instruments. Okay, so they are commonly utilized. Now, to avoid use of too many optical devices, the modification has been done in this instrument. Okay, so instead of using three devices, they are using a single mirror which can work both principle of collimation and the principle of focusing. Okay, so they uses the semi-cylindrical or half spherical mirror, and that is known as a fast Ebert instrument. This facet Ebert instrument, they uses only the single mirror which can work for the both things. These are the various different types of the grating monochromators. You just remember their name, that is replica grating, Ischlet grating, concave grating, and holographic grating. So these are prepared by using the laser technologies. So this is somewhat uh, difficult topic or theoretical topic you may have seen up till now. Still, we will stop here and you can see the remaining part of this topic into the second video of this instrumentation. See you in the second video.